All right, guys, so we're here for this launch. We don't know what camera it is.
I will bet you it's an A7 III. Who's in?
That's ridiculous.
No.
Because
No,
NAB is coming up soon. They're going to do A7 III for NAB. It'd be stupid to waste it here at WPPI.
I'm gonna bet. In fact,
Just so you know what you're cooking where your mouth is.
There you go.
There's two of them on that bet.
Who's got a call? Anyone?
I'll bet my Leica keychain.
Oh,
that is definitely interchangeable medium format.
All right.
I'm betting the Light L16.
Oh!
It's gonna have a touch screen.
Who's calling the bet?
The screen is gonna turn around and face you.
So you've got DNA.
I'm gonna bet what was left in
Gordon
there.
bets his DNA on the cup.
I'm gonna top all you guys. 3-month-old child. A5500 vlog.
All right, well, I guess we'll see what we get to see tonight. Welcome back, TCS TV viewers. It's Chris Nichols here from the Camera Store TV, coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. We're out here with Sony, looking at this brand new, now released A7 III. And looks like all of our guesses were wrong. Hey, we all chose the wrong camera. What do YouTubers and press know? Apparently nothing. But of course, on the flip side, everybody knew this camera is coming. I mean, this is what was expected, and this is what we got. Perhaps even a little bit out of order. And I say out of order because, of course, we already have an A7R III, and we expected that this camera would have been first, but you've got a 24 megapixel camera with a brand new sensor. It's an entry-level price point as far as full frame goes, and I'm excited to go shoot, so let's get on with it right away. Oh, I want to get some stuff out of the way before we go shoot. So first off, Jordan's actually shooting on an A7 III as well the whole time. And today he's going to be shooting full frame only. And then tomorrow he's going to do some crop sensor stuff. So you guys get a taste of the difference there. I also want to say we're always grateful to Sony for bringing us out to these press events. They're a lot of fun. But as usual, we've built our reputation on being unbiased, and we'll continue to do that. The thing about these Sony press events is we get these beautifully lit scenarios to shoot. Action and sports, they set up really, really nice scenarios, but today I thought we'd just get away, do some street shooting out here. And the last time I was in Vegas, I did the whole gambling and the strip and the shows and all that kind of stuff. That's what a lot of people think about when they think about Vegas. But the fact is that when you go off the strip about a block, it's a totally different city. So this morning, I kind of just want to wander around and explore that part of it. Expecting a lot of black and white shots today. The light's pretty. In these reviews normally we talk about this new feature, this new body design or whatever, but of course the A7 III is part of a family, and it's going to borrow a lot of the same components that you'll find in the A7R II, the A7R III, the A9, so really, I guess I'm going to focus on what unique features we do have here, but from a handling standpoint, from a menu standpoint, we've already been here before. And that makes sense. I mean, Sony's really trying to build up a family that's very familiar. You could pick up an A7R III and then use this as a backup camera, and you should be able to navigate everything and use everything very intuitively. So, I mean, that is a plus. I'm going to take a shot here against the sky, and of course that means some underexposure. Nice and easy to do with the dial right there in the thumb. And again, it's funny, normally I'd be reviewing or expect to be reviewing this camera before the A7R III, but all of these improvements now we kind of take for granted, but they're all great improvements. I still do think this is Sony's best body design to date. Of course, we have the AF on and the AEL button, which I've turned into my eye autofocus. I even like on the mode dial going back to a lockless mode dial. I mean, it's far away, you're not really gonna bump it by accident, and yet when I wanna change it, I don't have to push down on top and hold that locking button down. So these are all nice improvements, especially if you compare this against its predecessor, the A7 II. Cozy little TV spot. It's a nice place to hang out with two screens. All right guys, so pardon me for a second here. I just gotta set up my touch features and get some more customizations put in. And I mean, it's it's worth talking about it. You know, I mean, everybody complains about the Sony menu system, and granted, there's a lot of pages to go through, there's a lot of settings to set, but really all you have to do is take a little bit of time when you first get your camera set up, get your custom buttons set, get your function menu set, and then really the camera is very intuitive, it's easy to use, and you never really go into the menu again. Now, by far one of the most exciting things here is, and an unexpected things considering the price point, is we actually have the autofocusing system from the A9. So you've got, you know, over 90% coverage on this sensor, phase detect, hybrid with contrast detect. It's incredibly fast. I love eye autofocus. I think I've said that enough about Sony's, I'm gonna stop, but it's really impressive to have a state-of-the-art autofocusing system in this camera. As well, I've got touch functionality and I can set it up so I can use my thumb on the back screen while I'm looking through the EVF. I've also got the joystick control here. These are all great improvements. You're really gonna enjoy that on the A7 III, and it's a pleasant surprise. So one of the things that I do really like about the new cameras, the Z-type battery, excellent battery life, and Sony is saying CEPA rated 710 shots, so you're gonna get a little bit more than that. It's excellent. And the only thing I'm gonna make it a downside on is one of the reasons why we're getting better battery life is because this camera does not have the EVF and LCD screen of the A9 and A7R III, which of course we love. It has the EVF at 0.78 magnification you'd find on the A7R II. Now, it's over 2.36 million dots. It's not a bad thing. It's a decent viewfinder, but that's definitely where some of the cost savings is, and that's just to be expected when this is at an entry-level full-frame price point. So first off, I need a haircut, obviously. $9 is a pretty good deal, so I don't know, maybe we'll try it. Second thing, shooting through chain link fence, flick right over to manual focus. I do the punch in now. I know Jordan's having a hard time with the older EVF for video. For stills, of course, it's not that hard. I can take my time, so I found that fairly okay to use. And there we go. It's puddle shot, I know. Maybe we won't use it. So by far the biggest thing that we're really excited about is this new sensor. It's a brand new backside illuminated 24 megapixel sensor. You know, it's a good resolution, especially when you can't do small RAWs on the A7R III. And you know, it's the kind of thing that they're promising 15 stops dynamic range, but we're not gonna get that kind of push in this weather. So I think we're gonna call it for now. We're gonna head off, do some Sony events, and join you from there. All right, so we're in the industrial event space and Jordan is shooting continuous autofocus on, which is freaking him out like crazy. But it's a good test in this low light to see if the camera can handle it. All right, so as you can see, we have an opportunity to do some long exposures and some fast shutter speeds as well, just to try to capture the movement in interesting ways. But I'm also gonna test the silent shutter, the electronic shutter on this camera. So Sony is saying that we do have a silent shooting mode. I've done a little bit of testing. I am noticing some rolling shutter. All right, so I do love eye autofocus. I think it's brilliant. I'm tired of eye autofocus. It's too easy.
It's so
just
easy.
man.
That's accurate.
Now, in a situation where we have these people dancing, they're jumping, lots of acrobatic moves, it did have a hard time, and they are backlit as well, but going into just zone focusing, flopping that on the subject, the face detector would pick up the face in a lot of situations, and so again, I was getting nice, accurate focus. Any issues were mostly more due to shutter speed problems. What do you think it feels like to have this nice a body? I don't know. I've never known.
As you know, it feels fantastic. I'm glad.
Can you please stop hogging the chair?
Do you want the chair?
Other people
Yes.
want a turn to the chair.
Guys, there's nobody in the chair when I said that. Suddenly everyone's like, I want the chair, David's in the chair.
There's one chair with nice lighting, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna take that chair, because I'm
Well,
David Schloss.
Watch
so.
out, because if you see nice lighting, Jordan will walk behind it and try and do a shoot there.
All right, so we're out here in the Las Vegas desert. We're gonna do some shooting with the A7 Mark III, just using some long lenses and, you know, getting some sand kicked up, and we're gonna go push the Northrops out of the way. Out of the way, Northrops.
Oh, the race is on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're gonna far harder than I expected.
It's way harder. Oh. So as you can probably see, the light out here is very harsh. Really, really tough lighting. We're kind of shooting into the sun too from the angle that we're shooting these dune buggies at. So what it is going to do is give me a good opportunity to check the contrast here, really test this new sensor, the 15 stops of dynamic range. Totally backlit buggy. My histograms push to the edges. We're going to see what we get in post. All right, guys, so I'm telling you now because you're not gonna be able to hear me here in a bit because we're going on the buggies, we're gonna do some chasing around the dunes at high speed, and so what we're gonna do is take this opportunity to test the image stabilization capabilities of the A7 III because it does have that 5-axis system that all of the new cameras have. So we're gonna be using the 24-105 f4, and we're gonna have this shot without any optical stabilization and in-body stabilization, and then of course with all the fun stuff turned on, we're gonna see what kind of difference we get. All right, so we had a nice time next to the Nellis Air Force Base, but now we are gonna do something maybe less shaky. We'll see. We're gonna get on helicopters, we're gonna go to the Valley of Fire. Should be a lot of fun.
Hey, look at that. You can totally use the A7 III as a vlogging camera as long as you don't mind, you know, not seeing what you're actually filming with its tilty screen. But I just wanted to let you guys know that we're about to go out and shoot the helicopter ride, and I'm switching over. I'm going to go into the Super 35 record mode. Previously we've been using the full frame. Let's see how that looks.
You'll catch me, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll try now.
Next to you.
That you asked.
Because you're not gonna be taking photos, so you
No, yeah, I might as well just like
just hold on to my jacket.
can do that.
Okay, so awesome helicopter flight. Obviously it's done terrible things to my hair, but it's worth it because we are in the beautiful Valley of Fire. I'm eager to just get around and do some shots here. And really this is part where I want to talk about one of the more exciting things about this new camera, because yes, a lot of the features are the same things that we've seen in the A9, the A7R II, the A7R III. But here now we have a brand new 24 megapixel backside illuminated CMOS sensor, and we got lots of dynamic range, we got lots of strong shadows, beautiful color. So this should be a very good test to see what kind of imagery this camera can produce. So I've had a chance to play with some of the raw files now and take a look at it. It is through Sony's Image Edge software. I don't have a chance to get it through Capture One yet, but that's coming pretty soon. First off, let's just see where this sits in between the other cameras. You've got the A9, very specific purpose-built kind of sensor to deliver almost complete lack of rolling shutter and very, very efficient high-speed processing and throughput. And then you've got other sensors like the A7R III with its 42.6 megapixel sensor. Incredible resolution, no aliasing filter. I mean, that is the king of high-res, large output kind of photography. But for a lot of people, the 24 megapixel sensor is going to make sense. It's going to be just right. Now, you do have an anti-aliasing filter, but that's standard fare for full-frame 24 megapixel sensors. And if you then look at, okay, maybe we've got a higher-res 24 megapixel APS-C sensor without anti-aliasing filter, those might resolve better, but when you start getting into low light situations, it's going to work out in the wash anyways. I think for a lot of people, this sensor is going to fit the bill very nicely. Now, on the topic of things like low light performance and dynamic range, you're going to be happily impressed with this sensor. It's giving us 15 stops. I mean, I was able to push shadows in a very effective way. Low light performance improvements will always be a benefit with full frame, and this just takes the game even further. And I'd really start to say that this is starting to surpass some of the other 24 megapixel full frame cameras on the market. So that's all positive stuff. So how do you know if you're the kind of person who needs to upgrade to an A9 or an A7R III? I mean, again, the A9 has almost no rolling shutter in silent shooting, and the fact is the A7 III in silent photography has quite a bit of rolling shutter. So if that's a consideration for you, the A9 is still the way to go. If you're doing more traditional sports and action photography and you don't need to worry about quiet shooting, well, the A7 III does shoot 10 frames per second. It's got that 693-point AF system, and it's very much a respectable action and sports camera. A7R III, I think if you're doing wildlife or if you're doing large landscapes you want to print or crop, then that does have a lot of appeal, okay? So really, this sensor does go down to people who are going to do more casual photography or as a backup camera, but 24 megapixels is a lot. We are spoiled nowadays, and I think that does make the A7 III a solid performer all around.
Hey everyone, it's Jordan, the video guy, to talk about the A7 III as more of a filmmaking or videographer's tool. And I was really surprised when this was announced. After the A9, where they handicapped it a little bit, you know, pulling off the picture profiles, I was thinking we might see something like that here, but we're seeing all the cool stuff from the A7R III, from the big, beautiful Z-type battery where you're getting over 2 hours of record time. We have dual card slots on this, and we still have the picture profiles, including S-Log 2, 3, and HLG. So we're getting all of Sony's best consumer camera technologies tied into this camera, with one major exception, and that is the older 2.4 million dot viewfinder that we've got on this. So the drop from a 3.6 million dot viewfinder we saw in the A9 and the A7R III down to the 2.4 might not sound too dramatic, but I definitely noticed it while I was shooting. I shoot basically everything manual focus on this show, and I've gotten used to not having to punch in to check focus, but certainly I found myself doing that a lot with the A7 III, and a real problem with the Sonys is they don't have the best punch-in magnifier. It's great you can do it while you're recording, but it's a pretty soft image, and a lot of the time I found myself second-guessing, and in a few shots I noticed when I got into editing, my focus was ever so slightly off, and I don't think that would have been the case with the higher resolution viewfinder. Now, it seems like all of the Sony mirrorless cameras have their sweet spot. We saw on the A7R III that it was best in Super 35 mode. The A7S II was optimized for full frame shooting. The A9 was kind of a weird difference from that in that we saw very similar results from Super 35 or full frame, and I love that flexibility. The A7 III is very close to that. Now, what we are finding when you're using the full frame recording, it's super sampling, so you get a slightly sharper image. You do get better low light performance on that than in Super 35, but again, marginally, which was really impressive, and this is a killer sensor for low light shooting. I would put it very close to an A7S II until you're shooting extremely high ISOs. Now, one other great thing is if you go into HD and shoot 120 frames per second, we don't have a crop on that. And it is definitely softer than shooting at 60, 30, and 24, but again, still very usable what's coming off of this. And rolling shutter is quite well controlled. Even though we're doing the super sampling off full frame, it's a nice image coming off this, certainly better than the A7R III when we were shooting in full frame mode there. Now, there is one little bit of weirdness that reminds me of the 6300, and that is that we get full frame if we're shooting 24 and 25 for all of our friends in PAL countries, but if you're in an NTSC region and you want to shoot 30p, there is an additional crop on that and a low light penalty as well. So keep that in mind. Fortunately, we shoot our show at 24, so we're getting by scot-free with the A7 III. But looking at it as a complete package, especially at this price point, this is one of Sony's most capable full-frame mirrorless cameras for video, and it's their least expensive. It's a pretty impressive accomplishment.
Well, so our time in Vegas has finally come to an end, and You know, playing with the A7 III, my final conclusion that this is a very strong camera. I mean, Sony's done a lot of work, not only to become a very powerful sensor manufacturer, but also to now create a mirrorless body design that gets rid of a lot of the issues that photographers should have with mirrorless bodies. The A9, the A7R III, and now the A7 III prove it. You can get a mirrorless camera and make it work for many different kinds of demanding photography. Now, on top of that, you know, I think the people that are really going to look at this camera, people emerging into the full frame market. You know, this is an entry-level price point, and this is going to make this camera very appealing. I mean, if you're looking at a Nikon D750 or even a 5D Mark IV, at this point now you really have to look at the A7 III as a powerful contender. On top of that, if you're a working professional, you already have an A9 or an A7R III. The A7 III certainly is very capable as a backup or second body for your professional work. Now, I will be one of the first people out there to say that, you know, full frame sensors are not the be-all end-all, and I do really like APS-C cameras and Micro Four Thirds cameras as different creative tools in the process. But yeah, a lot of people are really going to like the benefits of full frame, the aesthetic, the high dynamic range, the great low light performance. And you look at this price point, you can't help but draw comparisons to other cameras like Panasonic G9s and Fuji X-H1s. And for a lot of people looking at a full frame camera like this is going to be an ideal solution. And there's no complaints about the bodies anymore. I think the A7 III is going to be incredibly successful on the market. And if you are now looking at making the jump to mirrorless cameras, you want to get away from some of the other brands, this makes it even more appealing with megapixel counts that are usable for pretty much everybody and a price tag that can get you in with less risk. I hope you guys enjoyed that review, and I hope you guys enjoyed our little taste of Vegas here. Again, let us know if you have any comments or concerns. Tweet to us, check us out on Instagram, but otherwise look for this new camera in the future and look for us in the future when we come to you with our next review.
I am saying this of my own free will. This high quality shirt is made from all natural baby seal skin. It is not baby seal skin. I've been informed it's something less painful. This stands for Tony Chelsea Show.